are joined via Skype. It's Doug Kyde. He is out in Colorado Springs. Doug, welcome. It's good to see you again.
Thank you very much. Good to see you too. Miss you guys. Wish I was there. Actually, not really. I'm happy being here.
Yeah, we miss you too, but you just said you got to sleep in until noon, which I know that must be nice for a dad, especially.
Yeah, I have an off day here other than this, so I took full advantage of that.
Good for you. Well, the Patriots coming off a big win. Guys, if it's all right with you, I want to start with Week 10 takeaways. Is that cool?
Absolutely.
Okay, because it was a big win. We talked a lot coming into this game about the struggles historically the Patriots have had at Mile High and in Denver, but they blew the Broncos out of the water. I want to start with one of my takeaways, being that I feel like this is finally a real turning point for the Patriots, and it's coming later in the season than what we usually see and what we've previously seen in seasons where the Patriots have struggled early on. But I felt like Sunday night was a real indication of the improvements that they have been able to make. Better late than never. I don't know if you guys agree with that, but it truly was a good game in all three phases of the game. That's something Bill Belichick always says, but this time it was true.
Yeah, I would have to say this was their most complete effort of the season. I think before this, it was probably the Falcons game you can probably point to. This was even better than that. I mean, there's really no glaring weakness that you can point out from this game to say was one thing they did very poorly against the Broncos that they have to fix going forward. I mean, obviously Malcolm Butler didn't have a great game, but other than that, I mean, there really aren't too many negatives to take away. I mean, on Denver's side, there are plenty of negatives to take away because this Broncos team is a disaster right now. But for the Patriots, I mean, they're riding high right now, 5 straight wins, and they're on a roll. They look like the team that we thought they were going to look like early in the season, I think.
Yes, and that's kind of what I'm saying, and I know I was the one who early on in this season, I admit it, I didn't think it was going to happen.
You predicted what, 7-9, right?
I did. All right, you guys keep bringing that up. That is a fallacy. I did not say that. You're stretching the truth, but I had some serious worries. As far as them being Super Bowl contenders, and now between them and the Eagles, I think I don't know who else could really beat them. They are looking really good, and I was impressed by the improvements that they made. Doug, how about you?
Yeah, no, it was absolutely their most complete win, and I think I hesitantly predicted that the Patriots would blow out the Broncos, and I wasn't overly confident about it, but I did think that this Broncos team was not nearly as good as the ones of the past, and even as good as some Patriots fans were possibly giving them credit for. I wasn't too afraid of Brock Osweiler, but I mean, Osweiler didn't even look that bad, and the Patriots still were able to blow out the Broncos. And like Zach said, Malcolm Butler had an up and down game. He was much better in the second half than the first half, but gave up almost 100 yards. Stephon Gilmore gave up a touchdown. The pass rush really wasn't what it needed to be against the Broncos. So there are still some areas that the Patriots could fix, and the fact that they were able to beat a team as badly as they did with some of those errors still in place and some of those things that they can still fix in the future, it's just a really good sign. And I mean, everyone just has to be predicting at this point for another Patriots Super Bowl, because I don't think there's another team in the AFC that's as complete as this team. And obviously they have to continue to try to stay as healthy as they possibly can. But, you know, getting Martellus Bennett in there doesn't hurt. I think they could probably lose an offensive weapon and still keep rolling at this point. The fact that the offense looked as good as it did without Chris Hogan in there, I think having Martellus Bennett, even for 7 snaps, helped in that aspect because he caught 3 passes. He looked like himself again. Obviously, the Patriots running backs had massive games, so that was a really good sign with Mike Gillislee as a healthy scratch. So I don't know. I mean, Patriots fans, they're spoiled again. They've got another great team on their hands, and there's really not a whole lot the Patriots fans are complaining about this week.
It is crazy to think when you say that they can afford to lose an offensive weapon and still be okay. That's crazy to think about when you consider the offensive weapons they have lost already, namely Julian Edelman, and that they're lucky to have been able to bring in Martellus Bennett. I feel like that was a big addition to the roster. And just also on the defensive side of the ball, Doug brought up that Stephon Gilmore did give up a touchdown, and I noticed that he picked up his 5th penalty in only 6 games that he's played. Obviously still has some things he needs to work on, but I've been really hard on him in terms of my take on how he's been doing, I've been really disappointed because of the lofty expectations he had coming into this season. But I definitely thought that, especially his first week back after being out for so long with a concussion, that it was the improvement seemed promising, at least, that he's kind of on the right track.
I would agree with that. I mean, as we said, it wasn't a perfect game. He did allow that touchdown to Demaryius Thomas, and he had, I believe it was a defensive holding. He's a physical guy. He's got to kind of find a way to modulate that physicality to play to a level where you can kind of disrupt receivers, but not to a level where you're getting 5 flags in 4 games or 5 games, whatever it is. But overall, I think the positives that he showed definitely outweighed the negatives. He pretty much I don't want to say he shut down Demaryius Thomas, but he applied very good coverage on one of the better receivers in the NFL for most of that game. I believe Demaryius Thomas finished with 44 yards receiving, something like that. One of those catches was on that fluke play where the ball hit off Trey Flowers' helmet or whatever, went flying up into the air. That was a 15-20 yard gain. Overall, Stephon Gilmore, for a guy who had sat out for a month, who had been pretty bad for the previous month, except for that one Buccaneers game, I'm encouraged with what he showed us. It's going to be another test moving forward when they face a team that they can't really just say, all right, Stephon, you go on this big guy, Malcolm Butler, you go on this small, fast guy, and we'll go from there. When you face, I mean, even this week when we're facing when we'll see the Raiders coming up, which we'll talk about in a sec, it's going to be a different problem. But so far, it's been pretty promising for Stephon Gilmore.
Yeah, so we'll dive into
I thought that even with the touchdown that Stephon Gilmore allowed, he actually got his hand in there. He had good coverage on that play, and it was just a really good catch by Demaryius Thomas. So even the negative plays that Gilmore allowed, he still actually was kind of doing his job on those plays, and I thought that touchdown was really more a good play by Demaryius Thomas than a bad one by Gilmore.
Yeah, no big-time coverage breakdowns or miscommunications or anything like that, at least none that were visible to us, so that's definitely an improvement.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because you will hear coaches credit the other team, credit the opponent, as Doug, you said, more so than their own team doing poorly. And we'll, like I said, dive deeper into all of this in terms of how the Patriots match up with the Raiders in just a bit. But right now, let's review the injury update, because the Patriots did have quite a few pieces out of the game against the Broncos on Sunday. That was Malcolm Brown, Marcus Cannon, Chris Hogan, obviously a big one, Cassius Marsh, and Eric Rowe still sat, and then Matthew Slater left the game with that hamstring injury. And then I also want to talk to you guys about Martellus Bennett's status, because he was on the sideline for a little bit, and he is, of course, coming to New England with that shoulder issue that was the reason that he ended up getting cut by Green Bay. Let's start from the top, the guys that were inactive. Do you guys have any updates on their statuses? And let's start with Chris Hogan, because I feel like he is the biggest one there that they could.
We probably won't get a good sense until tomorrow when the Patriots have their first practice out in Colorado Springs, where Doug is hanging out this week. We'll see if any of those guys get back on the field. Malcolm Brown, Marcus Cannon, and Chris Hogan. Wouldn't be surprised if Chris Hogan is out again this week. When he first suffered that injury, the report was that he would miss a few games probably. So wouldn't be surprised if he sits again. And with Cannon and Brown, it's really hard to say until we see them back on the field. But these are guys that have now missed extended periods of time, and they're all three of them are big time important players for the Patriots, even though they acquitted themselves just fine without him on Sunday.
The Patriots actually had a lot of their practice squad players travel, and some of the other players on their team, like Cassius Marsh, who didn't play, and like Eric Rowe, who didn't play. And I personally have not seen Marcus Cannon, Malcolm Brown, or Chris Hogan on this trip. I possibly would have seen them in Denver, the game against the Broncos, because a lot of the players who didn't play exited the locker room before we entered there for media availability. And then also, we were just hanging around the team hotel yesterday. I didn't see any of those guys as well. Obviously, I didn't see the entire team by any speck of the imagination, but they weren't hanging around there. So I actually would probably expect Malcolm Brown, Chris Hogan, and Marcus Cannon to miss at least another week. I don't think they'll be making it out here to Colorado Springs. Perhaps they can make the trip to Mexico City, but without a week of practice, that just seems extremely unlikely. And one of the players that we actually did see hanging around the hotel yesterday was Eric Rowe, who does seem to be moving a little bit better at this point. But the Patriots have so much depth at cornerback that I think that they could probably afford to keep him out another week, because Johnson Batamosi, who played so well in Stephon Gilmore's absence, didn't play on defense in Week 10. So if you're at the point where a guy like Badamosi doesn't even have to take the field, then I think that you can afford to have Eric Rowe sit for another week unless a situation arises where the Patriots would need him in that game because of an injury suffered at practice.
Yeah, I think I caught a glimpse of Eric Rowe, too, in that post-game locker room celebration video that the Patriots put out after every week. So he was there at the game. Cassius Marsh was warming up on the field during the game. So it does seem like they're a little bit closer to getting back on the field than those three guys that we talked about beforehand.
So good spot to be in when you have enough depth that you don't have to rush injured guys back. So that being said about Chris Hogan, if you guys expect that he probably will be out for some more time, obviously having Martellus Bennett helps alleviate some of that pressure on the offense. But what is the status with him? I mean, Zach, we talked before the game about how Bennett has been able to play in the past, last season in particular, through injuries that other guys might not be able to. So even though he is dealing with what has been reported as a torn rotator cuff in his shoulder, he is tough as nails. But we did see him on the sideline again on Sunday.
Yeah, Martellus Bennett's a bit of an enigma right now. I would have to say that he is at least a little bit injured. At least his shoulder, at least he does have something going on with his shoulder would be my assumption. It's probably not as, apparently he doesn't need surgery because he's playing in these games, and it does seem like it was a bigger deal when he was in Green Bay and wanted to get out of there than it is now when he's in New England and playing with Tom Brady and having the chance to win another Super Bowl. But the fact that he only did play 7 snaps in that game where he was on the sideline for a lot of the time probably means he's not 100%. I mean, maybe it was just them kind of getting him back into the flow of things when in his first game back, considering he did just join the team 2 or 3 days before the game. But I'd be willing to say he's probably not 100% right now. But like you said, he played through a lot of injuries last season, so he is a tough guy.
Doug, do you have any intel on that situation out there?
Yeah, and it was really funny talking to Martellus Bennett after the game. I mean, it just seems like he was pretty pissed off that the Packers cut him rather than put him on IR, which was his wish. And that just seems to be the main reason why he's now willing to play with the Patriots is he's angry now. He's on the team that actually needs him, so he's going to be playing again. And I think, like Zach said, I think they will probably continue to ease him into that offense. I think part of the reason why he only played 7 snaps was that he only practiced once. He went through the details of how he even got to the stadium or how he even got to Foxborough on Friday. He said that he arrived on the plane at 2, or he said he got back to his hotel at 2:45 a.m. and then had to be at the facility at 5:45 a.m. and then they practiced a few hours after that. Not really sure how that timeline, shakes out because I'm not sure how many flights from Green Bay are arriving at 2 in the morning. But still, it seems as if he got a really late night, didn't get much sleep, had to go to practice. He was on a flight that same day, had to really quickly reacclimate to the offense. So maybe we'll see him for a little bit more time against the Raiders, but I wouldn't expect to see him out there that much more. I do think that the game against the Broncos was actually kind of an ideal game to be missing Chris Hogan because the Patriots really wanted to rely on 2 receivers in that game. They played a lot of James Devlin. They played a lot of 2 and 3 tight ends. And that forced the Broncos into their base defense, which forced Von Miller into coverage on 40% of his snaps. And that really helped the Patriots and helped Adrian Waddle and helped the Patriots offensive line to make sure that Denver pass rush didn't get after Tom Brady. So if there was any game that you wanted to miss Chris Hogan, or maybe that's too strong of a word, this was kind of the perfect one. And maybe we'll see something similar against the Raiders. Maybe they can force Khalil Mack to do some different things out there if they are going to 2 tight ends or a fullback in there, and maybe they'll just try to go run heavy again against the Raiders.
Yeah, jumping out to that early lead definitely helped them in that regard too. I mean, it seemed like they were up 17-3 about 5 minutes into that game, and then once you're at that, you don't need to go 4 wide receivers and try to spread it out and throw it all over the field on the Broncos. They could kind of pack it in. James Devlin, career high 45 snaps. He had quite the game. I mean, he was one of my standouts from my rewatch of the game. He's a guy who doesn't get a lot of recognition, but he's playing extremely well for a fullback.
Yeah, he did do really well in that game, and part of the reason the Patriots were able to get out to that early lead had to do with special teams, Dion Lewis particularly, but that leads me to the Matthew Slater injury. He left the game. Doug, I know you were first to report that it was a hamstring injury on Sunday. Do you have any updates on him? Can we expect to see him back this week, do you think?
That's tough to know because he did miss time with that hamstring earlier in the season. He was part of that post-game scrum huddle that they do in the locker room. But, I'm hesitant to say I don't expect to see him out there. We'll see tomorrow if he practices. It does kind of seem like it might be up in the air. I probably would expect him to at least stay out here, be on the sideline for that game if he can't play. But, I mean, the special teams continued to play so well even while he was out of that game that obviously it would hurt the special teams if he can't play. But I think that they're playing so well right now that I think that they could continue to kind of keep it rolling without him.
Yeah, you always have to kind of watch those guys who re-injure the same injury later in the season. I mean, we saw the same thing with Eric Rowe. He injured his groin against the Saints, came back probably too early now when we're looking back on it, got hurt again 2 weeks later, and he hasn't played since. So those re-aggravations and the fact that the Patriots announced his injury right when they announced it, they announced he was doubtful to return, and then like 5 minutes later they announced that he was out. Normally it's not great when it's not a probable to return or a questionable to return, so we'll have to see what his status looks like going forward. But like Doug said, they do have so many talented special teams players that they can definitely make up for his absence.
Yeah, and another example of that where they are just doing well across the board or have enough depth that why rush someone back when they're not ready. So they are definitely in a good spot and taking advantage of any competitive advantage they can gain as they are practicing, as we've said multiple times, out in Colorado Springs out west this week. So they go from Mile High to the bit of an increase in elevation, and then what's it? Is it 7,000 feet in Mexico City?
7,280. Which is exactly 2,000 more than Mile High. So it's
so they're
pretty high up there.
Able to adjust to the time zone change out there and also to the altitude. Doug, since you're out there, what is your perspective on how much that will be able to help them practicing out there this week?
Yeah, I think it will definitely help. Just the more you can get acclimated to that altitude, the better. I wouldn't say I've noticed the altitude too much at this point, but if you're out there on a football field, obviously you're going to notice it a lot more. And Colorado Springs is actually even more elevated than Mile High. It's actually pretty close to the elevation that is in Mexico City. So it was really smart for them to come here to Colorado Springs to practice at Air Force for the week. They're certainly getting acclimated to it. I think just the lack of flights is helping them as well. I think that it was, Deron Harmon and Rex Burke had mentioned yesterday that just the fact that they didn't have to fly back from the game. They only had a 45-minute drive to Colorado Springs, and they got a full night of sleep. Then they get 2 days off. All of this is going to help them. They're not jumping on planes. They're not having to fly all the way from Boston to Mexico City. It's only going to be from Denver to Mexico City. So all in all, I think it was a really smart plan for the Patriots. The Patriots are not going to be spending much time in Mexico City. So that's another aspect that I think helps about staying in Colorado Springs. If the Patriots had been in Boston, if they had flown all the way back to New England, then maybe you would have seen them fly into Mexico City on Thursday or on Friday or maybe really early Saturday to try to get acclimated to the altitude. But I think that it's kind of a priority for this team to not spend too much time in Mexico City just because, it's Mexico City. Everyone says that it's safer at this point than it was maybe 10 or 20 years ago. But I think the less time you spend as a football team in a foreign country, it's probably the better. And the fact that they were able to get this going with Air Force is really big. It's really huge for them, I think.
And so they're taking on the Raiders in Mexico City. So, guys, let's look at how these two teams match up and where to start. Not that much of a disadvantage, I guess, that the Raiders aren't. I don't know what the altitude is out in Oakland, but at least they are
pretty low.
Normal
on the West Coast. So both these teams, the Raiders lose their home field advantage, I guess, technically, but they're moving to Las Vegas anyway soon. I don't know how much that really affects them. But the Patriots are doing really well on the road. They have, what is it now, a 12-game road win streak?
They have not lost away from Gillette Stadium since the 2015 AFC Championship game.
Yeah,
so
impressive.
It's been a long time. It's been a full season and a half now, yeah.
So home field advantage is really away field advantage for the Patriots, or whatever.
Something
Good
like
one.
It seems to be an advantage to them. Let's start with, we've talked about the improvements the Patriots defense has been able to make, but there is still work that can be done. How much of a challenge is this week? The Raiders are 4-5. They're not great, but I don't think that they're terrible. Derek Carr is a worthy opponent, worth respect. That Chiefs-Raiders game earlier in the season was pretty crazy. So yeah, just how much of a challenge do you think this will be for them, for the Patriots defense this week?
I mean, I don't think the Raiders aren't pushovers or anything like that, but this is not where people expected the Raiders to be after seeing what they did last year. I mean, last year, the Raiders looked, until Derek Carr got injured in, I believe it was week 16, they looked like a legitimate Super Bowl contender. They looked like the team that was going to challenge the Patriots for that top spot in the AFC. Then obviously Derek Carr breaks his leg. Their season basically just goes down the toilet because they didn't have a quality backup quarterback. This season hasn't been great. Hasn't been great in Oakland. I mean, they won their first 2 games. They got off to a good start, and since then, 4 losses in a row. They beat the Chiefs in that crazy was that a Thursday night game or a Monday night game? It was a prime time.
I think it was the Thursday night game because I think it was like the most exciting Thursday night game in the history of Thursday night games.
That's right. That was a wild game. They pulled that out at the end. Then the next week they get killed by the Bills. They beat the Dolphins in a crap fest on Monday night or Sunday night last week. This team just doesn't really look that good. I mean, they do have weapons on offense. Derek Carr still is a good quarterback. Going out there with their 2 wide receivers in Cooper and Crabtree, that's kind of a situation like I was talking about before, when there isn't one big guy and a little guy that you can stick Stephon Gilmore and Malcolm Butler on. That's going to be a challenge covering both of them. Marshawn Lynch has shown flashes of the old Marshawn Lynch this season, but he's also kind of shown a lot on the other end of the spectrum where he hasn't been all that productive. On the defensive side, you got Khalil Mack. You've got a pretty good pass rush. I mean, Josh McDaniels called it probably the best pass rush they'll see all season. I'm not sure if I agree with that, but they do have some talent. They have some talented players on both sides of the ball. They just haven't really been able to put it together as a full team this year.
Doug, what do you think is the biggest challenge or concern for the Patriots heading into this game against the Raiders?
I think they just have to make sure that they can limit Amari Cooper, because that was a really big thing in that Chiefs game, is that was one of the very few games this season that he actually went off. And I think that as long as you can limit him, then I think that you can really limit the Raiders offense quite a bit. You know, Michael Crabtree's a good receiver, but I think as long as Malcolm Butler and as long as Stephon Gilmore play at the top of their game in this game against the Raiders, I think they'll be good. For Marshawn Lynch's sake, I hope he gets a carry from the 1-yard line in this game, because I think that would really, help a lot of the issues that he's still dealing with from that Super Bowl 49. And on defense, I'm kind of tired of talking about these pass rushers, because the Patriots keep doing a good job of limiting them. They limited Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa against the Chargers. They limited Von Miller. I think they're probably going to limit Khalil Mack again. Every time they face the Texans, they limit J.J. Watt. It seems like pass rushers never really go off against the Patriots, at least not the guys that you expect to go off, because the Patriots game plan for them so heavily. So I think that, Nate Solder and Adrian Waddle, whoever's going up against Khalil Mack, will have plenty of help. The Patriots will game plan around it. Tom Brady will be trying to get the ball out quickly. Running backs will be kept in to help out. Tight ends will be kept in. James Devlin was chipping in against Von Miller, so I'd expect him to possibly do the same thing against Khalil Mack in this game. Maybe you try to run the ball at them a little bit more. I know that I mean, it's a hot topic every week when the Patriots are going up against these pass rushers, but if they keep limiting them, then at a certain point it's not really a storyline anymore, even if it is the best player on their defense or whatever, if the Patriots can limit them. So we'll see how they do this week, but I'm expecting good things from the Patriots against Khalil Mack. I certainly don't expect him to have too impactful of a game, given how the Patriots have played against other top pass rushers in the last couple of weeks.
I'm curious, because we talked about the absence of Marcus Cannon being a possible setback for the Patriots, because he was the one who was able to neutralize Von Miller when the Pats played the Broncos previously. But as Doug just said, they did do a good job of limiting him. How much of that had to do with the fact that they were able to get out to such a hot start? And in the sense of how confident are you in Adrian Waddle to be able to do a good job again this week? I
mean, I'm sure the hot start definitely helped, but I've got a fair amount of faith in Adrian Waddle right now, which is something that I wouldn't have said early in the season, because as we've talked about a whole bunch last week, this was a guy who didn't see the field at all last season, played one offensive snap the entire year. I mean, it obviously didn't help him that everybody in front of him pretty much stayed healthy the entire season, but he's really been in the game. He's either started or played the bulk of the game in the 3 games against the best pass rushers that the Patriots have seen so far. I mean, he started against Von Miller. He came in pretty early in the game against Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram, and then he started against Jadeveon Clowney, J.J. Watt, Whitney Mercilus, all those guys with Houston that they saw back early in the season. And he did pretty well in all of those games. I mean, we haven't seen a significant drop-off between Marcus Cannon, who was probably the Patriots' best offensive lineman last season, and Adrian Waddle, who was a guy who couldn't see the field. So it's definitely been a huge help to them, that the fact that he's been able to step in and not have there be a significant drop-off between the starter and the backup.
Doug, didn't know.
Yeah, I have a ton of confidence in Adrian Waddle right now, actually. I think he's playing really well. There really hasn't been a major drop-off whatsoever from Marcus Cannon to Adrian Waddle, and he's playing back at the level they did once as a starter with the Lions, maybe even better than he was playing back then. So the Patriots really have a pretty legitimate swing tackle there on their offense, and it's made Cam Fleming kind of, I don't know, they really don't need him. They are using Adrian Waddle in that role. I think there was rumors that the Patriots were even willing to trade Cam Fleming at the trade deadline. No one bit. So I think that really kind of shows the confidence that the Patriots have in Adrian Waddle to back up both Cannon at right tackle and Nate Solder at left tackle. So he's been a major surprise this season. He's kind of been the Johnson Batamosi of the offense, and he came up pretty huge against the Broncos there. I mean, when Von Miller was rushing the passer, when Tom Brady saw him coming, Tom Brady definitely made it his impetus to get the ball out a lot faster than if Von Miller wasn't rushing. So I still don't know if Tom Brady has the same confidence in Adrian Waddle as he might have in a Marcus Cannon or a Nate Solder, but he did his job and he kept Tom Brady clean, and he keeps keeping Tom Brady clean. So it's been really solid for Waddle this season.
Well, one area of weakness that did persist. Sorry, 3-2. One area of weakness that did persist on Sunday were the red zone issues, especially early on in the game, settling for field goals. That does concern me a little bit. How do you guys think the Patriots can use this game against Oakland to try to iron those out? Because I feel like this is something they can't let persist much longer into the season, because that's something that could haunt them when it comes playoff and hopefully for them Super Bowl time.
Yeah, I actually think the red zone production execution was a lot better this past weekend than it has been in previous games. I think in the previous 4 games they were something like 5 for 15 in the red zone on scoring touchdowns. That 33 whatever % clip, that is not nearly as effective as an NFL team needs to be once they get down there. But I mean, against the Broncos, they were 4 for 6, which is pretty solid. I mean, they ended up with 2 field goals as well. But going forward, I do definitely think that Martellus Bennett's going to play into their red zone plans, especially if Chris Hogan remains out for the foreseeable future. And really all of their tight ends. I mean, everybody knows that Rob Gronkowski's a big-time red zone threat. And Tom Brady even threw to Dwayne Allen twice.
Hey, Dwayne Allen got a touchdown.
He almost had 2. I mean, he came very close to having 2 touchdowns. Tom Brady targeted him twice in the end zone after not throwing his way for basically a month and a half. So that's got to be a positive sign for the Patriots too, to see all 3 of those big bodies kind of getting involved down near the goal line. Martellus Bennett didn't really get involved in the red zone this past game, but he's shown that he can in the past, and I think that he will moving forward.
Dwayne Allen was so happy after the game to get on the board with that catch on that touchdown. And I might be proven very wrong on this, but I kind of feel like that might be able to get him rolling a little bit. I think that he can help their red zone issues a little bit, and he certainly did on Sunday night, and I think we could continue to see that moving forward. Maybe they'll try out those 3 tight ends at once. Maybe they could even try out 4 tight ends at once if they want to get Jacob Hollister some red zone opportunities as well. I'm not ready to say the red zone issues are completely fixed, but I think that it was a giant step forward against the Broncos, and I think Patriots certainly will try to continue that against the Raiders on Sunday in Mexico. And yeah, I mean, I think that getting Martellus Bennett back is huge in the red zone. I think it will be with a full week of practice, a full week to acclimate. He had 1 practice under his belt going against the Broncos, so I think that they will be able to get him back into those red zone situations. And I think that, they need all the big bodies they can get there in the red zone as long as Chris Hogan is out, because when your wide receivers are Danny Amendola, Brandon Cooks, and Philip Dorsett, all of whom are under 6 feet tall, you need some guys who are 6'6" and 6'7", like Martellus Bennett and Rob Gronkowski. So I think that they will definitely lean on those guys moving forward. And I mean, even Rex Burkhead was a red zone threat on Sunday night, and I think that Brady will continue to rely on those guys too. It seems like Tom Brady loves throwing to Rex Burkhead right now, and it's pretty easy to see why. He might have one of the softest pairs of hands on this team. I don't think I've ever seen him drop a pass. And he looked pretty good in his routes, coming out from out wide, coming out from the backfield. So I think that he will continue to get reps, and we probably won't see much of Mike Gillislee moving forward. And maybe the Patriots will try to rely on passing to their backs in the red zone rather than, trying to plow forward with Mike Gillislee. And Rex Burkhead isn't too bad of a short yardage back himself. He actually converted on some short yard situations against the Broncos, so we might start to see him get some of those carries when the Patriots do get inside the red zone on the 1 or 2 yard line when they need that short touchdown.
Yeah, Burkhead did have a monster game, and as far as Allen being able to carry this momentum and maybe get back in the groove, get a little bit of a rhythm going, we did talk about how the addition of Martellus Bennett could also help with that, and we talked about this before the game, so it was good to see him finally get that catch, but that he kind of was on the hot seat with Bennett coming in, that if he didn't start to improve, there really wouldn't be much of a reason for the Patriots to continue to hold on to him. So I feel like that could also be a factor in helping him carry this momentum from getting that big touchdown and hopefully continuing to be, or starting to be, impactful on the offense.
Yeah, for sure. It was definitely huge for him to kind of get off the schneid with not just a catch, but with a touchdown catch. And mentally for him, I'm sure it has to be a huge relief after basically not seeing a target in 4 weeks and then seeing the team go out of their way to bring in a guy who could basically replace you on the depth chart to come out in your first game, get 2 targets in the end zone, have one of them end up in a touchdown. That's got to be a huge relief for Dwayne Allen.
Absolutely. Guys, are you now ready to reach into our social stack?
Let's do it.
Yes.
Okay. All right, let's do it. Let's roll our first post here of Tom Brady. He's just always, producer Marc, there he is. What is this, you guys? Why is this happening?
Got the A-Rod vibes.
TV Times is just like killing me. I mean, Tom Brady in general, he was the sole proprietor of our social stack segment last week. Here he is again. This is terrifying.
The TV Times is getting really weird.
It's getting weird.
I don't know is there an alligator in this one? I know there's been an alligator.
Yeah, the alligator just lurks. He's like dressed as a detective, like with a trench coat lurking in the back. I don't get that.
I like that they brought back the Tom Brady circa 2012, 2013 hair.
Yeah,
got it flowing in the breeze again.
Yeah, that's an interesting detail I hadn't picked up on.
Why is his jersey all ripped up?
I was too focused on the horse body. Doug, do you have a take on this cartoon? Because it's terrifying.
Yeah, why is his jersey all torn up? What happened to him?
I guess
is that what happened?
Busted out of the horse's head? What happened to the
when
horse?
you're on the mountaintop? I don't know.
Why is he pointing down at Denver? Like it's scary. It's almost scarier than remember the courtroom sketch? Like this is a weirder photo. It's just very strange.
Yeah, his face looks like the Tom Brady mask more than it looks like Tom Brady.
All right, so that's weird. That's my conclusion on the TV Times situation.
Agreed.
We also have in our social sack the Martellus Bennett situation. Here's Kyle Van Noy defending him, coming to his defense, saying, "I don't know you, you don't know me, but don't be coming for my guy if you don't know him or the story. I'll pray for you though." So that's nice of him. He's gonna pray for this individual who is tweeting, throwing some shade at Bennett, and this guy certainly wasn't the only one. A lot of Packers Nation not happy with him.
Yeah, this was Tom Crabtree, who was a former tight end for the Packers. And you did see a pretty large outpouring of both current Packers and former Packers kind of coming to the defense of this Dr. McKenzie, who Martellus Bennett really kind of threw under the bus in that long Instagram story rant thing that he had last week. basically kind of questioning his credibility as a doctor and as a professional. And everybody who's come out since, I mean, Aaron Rodgers spoke up, Jordy Nelson, I believe Jermichael Finley, who had some serious injuries of his own when he was in Green Bay, they all came to the defense of this doctor, saying that if anything, he was overly cautious with the players, not kind of so cavalier as Martellus Bennett kind of portrays him. So yeah, it's a very, I mean, I gotta imagine Martellus Bennett's not the most popular guy in Wisconsin right now. I mean, he just seems to kind of, he doesn't subscribe to the don't burn a bridge mentality. He's basically throwing a torch into Green Bay on his way out, just saying, hey, you guys didn't know what to do with me, like your doctor's corrupt, like I'm getting the hell out of here. And everybody back there is understandably, I would say, being like, what the hell, man? What are you doing right now?
I'd have to assume part of the reason for that.
How great is Kyle Van Noy? Kyle Van Noy is such a welcome addition to this Patriots team. He's a guy who will like actually speak his mind about things and will actually tell the truth and actually speak out about things like this. And I think that this is great for the Patriots to have a guy like Kyle Van Noy who will stick up for, one of his brothers on the team, that is Martellus Bennett. It kind of shows how the Patriots feel about Martellus Bennett when Kyle Van Noy will kind of clap back at a former player and Tom Crabtree and say, hey, don't be coming at my guy. It's pretty awesome. Kyle Van Noy is a very interesting person. He's a pretty funny guy, and he's not like anyone else that we've ever really had in the Patriots locker room in that he's never afraid to say what's on his mind, and it's fantastic. He's the best.
And you know what's good about it, too, is that he's able to kind of kill him with kindness. He adds little prayer hands and says he's going to pray for him. He's sticking up for his guys and clapping back, but unlike Marshawn Lynch, who was sticking up for Derek Carr and ended up getting suspended, shoving people, starting things on the field, or Mike Evans just decking dudes out of nowhere. He's able to do it subtly and make his point, stick up for his teammates. I feel like that does help create camaraderie among the team, but not getting penalties or getting suspensions or anything is obviously a good thing.
I like hearing from athletes on social media like this when it sounds genuine. I mean, from both sides, from the people in Green Bay that are speaking up kind of against Martellus Bennett and his teammates that are supporting him. I hate athlete Twitters that are just kind of, I don't know, pimping their brands or whatever. I mean, I know you got to do it with your sponsors and whatnot.
Horoscope
it's nice to hear the unfiltered kind of takes from players. And you don't really see that in New England too often. I mean, Doug and I are around these players a lot, and there are very few of them. I guess like Garrett Blunt maybe is one. Like very few that are open to kind of sharing their actual opinions on social media.
Yeah, and not only just in New England, I feel like in the NFL in general, you see a lot more of it in the NBA. Mm-hmm. LeBron tweeting out that Arthur tweet or picture. I just feel like, they're a little, they're
Twitter
more honest.
In the NFL, that's true.
Whatever the commercial is with,
was this the Odell Beckham one?
No, who's in it? It's about Josh Norman.
It's Josh Norman and Dez, right? Dez
yes,
Bryant?
yeah. And he draws like I wish that actually happened. Like
I know,
that
you don't see that. You
hilarious.
don't see too much of
Are
that.
you
in real
implying
life,
he can't cover you? I didn't say that. But yeah, it would be funnier and just more refreshing, because it's like if you are gonna have rather athletes just not have social media platforms if you're not gonna really, say anything. So
I like when they spice it up a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. It makes our social sack much more entertaining.
It makes it things other than just things that Tom Brady
weird,
puts out.
Yeah, Tom Brady-isms. I mean, the only thing, Edelman being out this season, I feel like he's been quieter on social media as well.
We haven't seen much Burger Time or anything like that.
Yeah, he's one that's also quite strange on social media, but keeps it interesting. Final thoughts, guys?
I'm going to write about this tomorrow, but this Martellus Bennett situation, I understand why Packers fans, why Packers players, why everyone is upset about this. But if Patriots fans are having difficulty coming to terms with the fact that they basically got a star player for free in Martellus Bennett and how his situation leaving Green Bay wasn't exactly the best look, NFL players have like the worst rights out of any other league compared to the MLB, the NBA, hockey. They don't get guaranteed contracts. They're risking their bodies every week. This is a small victory for a player for once who fought against owners, fought against a team, got his way, got released, got to go to a team that he wanted to go to. So I think, as bad as it might look on the surface for Martellus Bennett, I think that this was actually a great thing for players, and maybe, in the next CBA, they'll try to fight back against this and prevent this from happening again. But Martellus Bennett gets to kind of put a notch in his belt on this one, that he was actually able to fight back against the NFL and win and get to join the team that he actually wanted to midway through the season. So good for him.
Yeah, and that is a rarity. And also, this is what I was going to say just a few minutes ago, is that I would imagine a lot of this has to do with his age. He did, before he came to New England, hint at retirement. I mean, he's not a spring chicken by any means. So, I mean, yeah, I can't blame him for wanting to make the most of what he has left in the tank for his career.
And they're just, it's a weird connection that Martellus Bennett has with New England, because everywhere else, it seems like by the time he leaves, people just hate him, and he hates the people there. I mean, he had a very kind of nasty exit from Chicago. Definitely doesn't look back fondly on his time in Dallas. Now he has this thing with the Packers, and in New England, it seems like everything's been pretty much all gravy so far. And now he has a chance of winning another Super Bowl.
Yeah. Well,
after he talked to us on Sunday night after the game, well, all the reporters were like, "Oh, Martellus, it's great to have you back." And he was like, "I actually like you guys. You guys write nice things about me, so I'm happy to be back." And then as we were walking out of the locker room with him, he was talking about the reaction from Patriots fans on Twitter, how everyone was just throwing gifts out there and rejoicing about how Martellus Bennett was back. So yeah, like you said, he definitely does have a special connection with New England, with Patriots fans, and this is the only place that actually still likes the guy. So can't really blame him for wanting to come back here and play for Belichick and Brady and join a bunch of teammates who actually could stand the guy last year.
I'm not going to lie, I'm pretty excited for the soundtrack to come back when we're having media availability in the Patriots locker room. It's been real quiet in there without him, especially when he starts playing Harry Potter music during the holidays. Too. Yeah, he'll have the holiday jams
Martellus
going.
loves him some Christmas music.
Yeah, he has this big boom box that he plays out in front of his locker. It's great.
Love it. Hey, 2 quick shout-outs before we end.
Oh boy, here we go.
King football. Going back to the Massachusetts High School State Championship game. 23 wins in a row. They're playing Lincoln Sudbury, I believe, in 2 weeks. So best of luck to them. And Charles
going to the ship.
Rugby. Go ahead, Doug. What are you saying?
I was just saying they're going to the ship.
They are going to the ship. And Charles River Rugby, the rugby team I play on, going to the playoffs for the first time in 12 years. So shout out to me and them.
All right. Doug? All
Nothing.
right. Well, Doug, we will, good final thought.
Oh, thanks.
And aside from that, we will look forward, Doug, to your article coming out about all the Bennett stuff. And you can obviously find that on NESN.com, as well as all your Patriots news and the other shenanigans and chicanery and such. And we'll be back at you with Between the Tackles next week. So join us right here. Thanks for watching.